What's up, fellow hunters? This is going to be a basic overview of what we're going to build with this series. Um, this is a this is a tree for the one of the games that's available where I am here in Florida. They run a 2-2 blind structure with a 300 max buy-in. Um, the the reason behind the 2-2 is to prevent chopping so that they get rake on every pot no matter what. But realistically, nobody, if it folds to the button, more often than not, the button will fold and allow the blinds to chop. Um, it's obviously different when the straddle's on. When the straddle's on, there is no option to chop, so the button will tend to open more. But when it's just this two blind structure, that's typically what you see. So what I have built here is a $10 RFI, which is raise first in, a 3-bet to $30, and when there's an open to 10 and a caller, we add 10 for each one. So it's going to be $40 if there's a RFI plus one call, and then obviously 50 for RFI plus two call, and no, that's it. Also, if the 3-bet sizing is 3x, 4-bet sizing is 2.5. So let's go here and look. So we have an open to 10, a 3-bet to 30, or if there's a call, a squeeze to 40. If there's a second call, you squeeze to 50. And as you can see, it's squeeze or fold, because what ends up happening is if you allow every position to call and squeeze, the tree becomes so large that you need, 2-3 terabytes of RAM to solve it. It gets so out of hand so fast. So the way it works, the way I set the tree up is there's only 2 calls allowed, and then it's squeeze or fold. Now that doesn't mean that it's only these 2 seats. So let's go open, and then we'll say there's a fold, and then a call and a call, right? A call and a call. Then it becomes squeeze or fold. And it can also go call, fold, call, and then it becomes squeeze or fold. So 2 people can call in position, and if it goes call, call, and then it goes fold, fold, the big blind can always close the action. The big blind always has the option to close the action. So that is our, okay, so open. Let's just run this real quick. Open, call, call, squeeze, right? The next sizing is 125, right? So squeeze to 50, 125, which is 2.5x. Now if it goes open, fold, fold, let's say open 3-bet. Let's see, open 3-bet, fold, fold. Obviously we don't cold call 3-bets. I don't add those in because it just makes the tree enormous and there's no reason for that. 4-bet is going to be 3x when it's heads up. Now if it goes open, call, call, squeeze, 4-bet is going to be 2.5. And everyone has the option to call because this is as close as I can get it and still have a manageable tree size. Because realistically, this is going to be for pre-flop mostly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go small, small, very compact, and it makes it manageable. You could reduce the buckets down to 15 and make the texture medium if you wanted to. There's plenty of information online about buckets and textures. I don't think there's any reason for me to go into detail explaining those things, unless you want me to. But and the rake. So the rake in these games is pretty high. It's $6 rake plus a $2 promo drop because they run high hand promos. They do all kinds of things. So it's $8 in total. And the way that rake is calculated is 1,000 M chips, right? So it says M chip here is one small blind. So if you're playing 2-5 and it's an $8 rake cap, $10, $8 rake cap. If you're playing 5-10, it's the same thing, right? So it would be $5. $8 rake divided by a $5 small blind times 1,000. 1,600 is what you would put here for a 5-10 $8 cap game, which in Florida, all 5-10 is almost always going to be time rake, which is $15 per player per dealer. And dealers change every half hour. It comes out to about $6 a hand because that's I believe it's 20 hand average per dealer. Time rake does not qualify for promotions. And most of the time the promotions are not. If you're playing 5-10 here, the promotions don't really matter. Because their 5-10 is 3K max. 3K max when the table opens, but then it becomes either match the stack or uncapped, depending where you play. So with that size of buy-in, there's no reason to try to qualify for a $400 high hand if you're playing, 6K pots plus. $400 isn't going to do shit. Nobody cares about that. So yeah. And for post flop sizings, I have, let's say we go open call. We're going to do a three-way flop here. Fold, fold. And then big blind also calls. Big blind checks. So we have an option of 1/3 or 2/3 with a pot size re-raise. Now obviously there is no way to get Monker to round up or round down to round numbers, right? So 60 cents, obviously you can't bet $10.60 in a live game. You either have to bet 10 or 11. And you can't raise to 63.70, but there's no way to make it an exact round number. I mean, I guess you could figure out the pot percentage, but that's just, it's just being anal, because most of this post flop is only, this is not how you're going to review a hand. When you're done, you're not going to run through the action, input a flop, and then try to gauge, and then you're not going to study post flop from this sim, right? You're going to create a new sim under a new tree and start on the flop with 2 players or 3 players or 4 players, however many people saw the flop, and then you're going to input ranges and then input your flop. So what I have for post flop is 33, 66% without donk bets. And I also have, if it checks through, you have the ability to overbet the turn, or bet 50 when it checks through. And the reason for that is because, well, that's just my strategy. On the flop, when it checks to me, if I'm going to c-bet, I'm going to bet 1/3 or 2/3. If it checks through, then say for instance, let's run well, we could just use that. Say I defend the big blind here, right? Fold, fold. I call on the big blind, check. It checks through. And on the turn, let's say for instance I flop a set and I was checking to either check raise or check call, whatever. And I'm planning the hand in my head in the future. And say the turn puts a second flush draw and I have bottom set. Instead of leaning for 1/3 or 2/3, I'm either going to bet half pot or overbet, which most of the time I'm gonna overbet with the top and bottom of my range. Bottom of my range, not meaning literal. Like I'm not gonna overbet 8 high with no flush draw on a two flush draw board, if that makes sense. I'm gonna be overbetting the turn with all of my value, like my nut hands, and I'm gonna be overbetting the turn with my strong draws, if that makes sense. And then my half pot sizing is going to be my middling hands. Like say the flop is king 10 4 and the turn is a 7 and I check, pre-flop raiser checks and the field caller checks. I'm going to be betting all my king X at 50%. I'm going to be betting my ace 10 with a backdoor flush draw. So like I turn the flush draw and I have middle pair, I'm going to be betting 50%. I'm not going to be going for 150. Now when I have king 10, pocket fours, if I turn a set, if I have queen jack with a flush draw, ace jack with a flush draw, those hands I'm going to be overbetting in that spot. So I want this tree to have the ability to play the way that I play. Whether it chooses to do that or not is irrelevant right now, because we're going to node lock those ranges later, but I just want to know that the option is there for it to run the solve to give me a good, right here, a good big blind overcall range, right? And if I bet 150 and it goes call, fold, I have no option to bet. Huh. Oops. So let's add an option to bet. And on the river, we're going to bet 75%. And this means next action. So I bet 75%. He can raise 100%, right? So street equals river. This means and flop bets equals 0 and turn bets greater than 0. Now that gives me the ability to bet for value right here. So like I said, I overbet the turn when it checks through. The original raiser calls, field caller folds. I have the ability to bet here. And because 100% of pot is less than, is more than what he has in his stack, it adds an all in. Or he can call, obviously. So now this tree is what we are going to solve. Now, in the next videos, we're going to show how we actually build this tree using these right here, opponent models and action configuration files. We're going to set all of this up to create this tree, and then we're going to set up the settings to, we can drop the buckets. 15 is probably the minimum that you want to have for buckets. So medium, so perfect, medium, small. Yeah, so that's it for this video. We're going to build this tree in the next one, and I'm going to walk you through how to build this for your game that you play in, and to use, and how to set up your specific play style. Like I said about the 33 1/3 or 2/3 is just my personal game. That's what I do. I have a 1/3 sizing, a 2/3 sizing. If it checks through, and then I have overbet or 50. And after that, I'm either betting for value or I'm just checking and giving up. So we'll get to that, and until then, I'll see you on the next one.